Iraq during the past few years or even several years has seen a period of stability and a sense of pulling it back together. And that stability that prevailed over the past several years helped the government to actually make some progress that is noticeable and observable progress. You see the streets are cleaner, are opened up, there are no concrete blocks anymore, the sidewalks are being organized, the cleanliness of the city is becoming a little better. It's not perfect, but it's becoming noticeably better than it was. Almost a renaissance in the private sector. You see restaurants, cafes, malls are springing out everywhere. On the subject of digital transformation, I have to admit that if we had been focused a bit more, we would have made a lot more progress. But progress has taken place. So what's lacking was really the strategic collective planning. And I had advocated from a while ago, almost 2.5 years ago, that we need a centralized entity. Now, this entity was created and it's still in formation. We have achieved several major milestones in Iraq. So when you think about digital public infrastructure, there are 4 fundamental pillars. The first one is digital identity, because digital identity is pivotal to enable the use or the identification of the user so that you can have services and applications become easily implemented, leveraging that digital identification for authentication, as well as for tracking. Today, more than 90% of the Iraqi population has the unified digital ID. It's a small piece that requires further effort in order to turn the digital ID into a useful tool for digital transformation in general inside Iraq. And that component is access to the digital ID repository that would be through an API, an application programmer interface, that enables applications as well as services to interact with the repository to verify the identity or to confirm the identity of a user, for example. The second component is e-payment. Electronic payment started in Iraq fairly early, actually, but it was to serve the distribution of pensioners' pay. And that eliminated a lot of the fraud that could happen when you use cash or you just simply bring in a document to verify your identity, and the documents often were fake, and so on. Now, what is significant about e-payment and the availability of facilities for electronic payment is when you do a transaction that is an electronic transaction of any sort, and you need to associate payment with it, you need a vehicle to allow you through the electronic process to reach a payment gateway so that you can effect the process of paying for the service or the goods you're purchasing and close the loop without having to have human intervention, hence achieve automation, which is the primary purpose of digital transformation. The third pillar, which has been achieved recently, is the introduction of electronic payments, the ability to sign documents electronically without having to print it and sign it mechanically by hand. Very important in the process of completing the cycle of automation. So that was completed recently by the Ministry of Communications in work that was done with a private company in Iraq, as well as an American company, and completed the third important pillar in this list. The fourth pillar in the list is to maintain data and make it available for sharing, so that I can use the data that a particular department may have created, for instance, the digital ID, to enable sharing it. Will actually facilitate all kinds of automations in the electronic transactions. And again, that's really the purpose of digitalization. So what your goal in achieving digitalization in society is increasing productivity by doing things much faster. The second thing is transparency. Everything you do electronically will make it observable, it can be monitored, and can be tracked electronically, again, through computers. And the third thing is maintaining accuracy. So, because when you do things electronically, chances of making errors become less, which is increasing productivity. That means it has a direct impact on the welfare of the country. Because what it will do, it will increase the GDP of the country. It will accelerate everybody's production, everybody's services. And as such, you could get a multiplier effect through the digitalization of the country that will improve the economy by orders of magnitude instead of just a percentage relative to the current economy. These four pillars are the essential pillars, but for example, having data centers in the country that are modern data centers, it's something we're working on, and we're anticipating that in less than a year, we should have some modern data centers in Iraq that are based on cloud technology rather than traditional data centers, which is what is common until today. The data centers will enable any business to host its applications, its services in the data center without having to figure out the infrastructure within the company or within that institution in order to offer these services. This is a major step forward, and it's happening as we speak, actually. Another thing is taking care of the human resources and upskilling the capabilities of the workers of the country. In my office, we have been working very closely with the private sector, in which we are creating an opportunity in partnership with the key stakeholders, attract local investors as well as foreign investors. We attract solution providers, and we bring them together and we create a special purpose vehicle. Through that process, we save the government from having to spend the money on these initiatives, but rather open the opportunity for the private sector to participate in these projects as an investment, and which would have a return on the private sector, on the country, and on the welfare of the entire state. Actually, digitizing enables transparency.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean transparent, because you can digitize things and you can maintain them in secret and you can maintain them in privacy. But electronic, you can have monitoring systems that make them transparent, and thereby things cannot happen under the table, which is what eliminates corruption. Digitalization is an enabler. It's a tool that allows you to achieve something. Eliminating corruption requires willpower, requires decisive action on the part of the leaders. It is not the technology that will achieve elimination of corruption, but it's the technology that is the tool that would be necessary to enable the leaders from imposing rules to eliminate corruption. Trust is trust. It has nothing to do necessarily with digitalization. When we create a digital world, an equivalent world to the real world, but is represented in digital format, we need to transfer that trust as well into the digital space. So when we talk about digital trust, it's actually a reflection of real life trust that we normally practice, but we need to move it into the digital realm so that we can use it in the digital world as well. Data governance is an important aspect to spell out the rules and regulations for the use of data safely and to protect data that belong to private citizens or to private entities. The means to achieve that is not rocket science anymore. Or maybe it is rocket science, but it's known, it's understood. It's a checklist. You go over this checklist, you authenticate, you check authorization, you give the authorization, you grant the authorization, then you send your message, but before you send it, you encrypt it so that you hide its content, and so on. These kind of measures in Iraq, unfortunately, because of there is not well spread knowledge about cybersecurity, sometimes you hear too much exaggeration about cybersecurity when actually when it comes down to the nitty-gritty details, it's a checklist. And that checklist consists of steps that are known, and there are vendors that provide you with solutions that meet the requirements of every one of these checkpoints. Let's not worry about data security. Let's figure out how we can actually produce data and why we produce data. We produce data when we use digital applications. We still don't have many digital applications in the country. And that is, remember the fourth pillar?
Yeah.
I need to produce the data, I need to share the data. That we're still at a very early stage, because when we start producing data from applications, when we use enterprise resource planning applications, human resource management, accounting and finance, material management, and the other applications like customer relationship management, supply chain management, all these applications are to organize and automate the process in our life and make it faster, make it more accurate, and make it more transparent. And that part, we're still far away from it. What worries me is putting regulation too early when we do not understand the problem. So data governance is important, but it needs to be put together by experts, not novices. Often we end up regulating, we end up imposing guidelines, and these guidelines and these regulations are not done by experts, but instead people who have some exposure to the subject, but don't have full knowledge and ability to really put together a full data governance guideline. Now, many countries beat us into developing these data governance guidelines, and we should use that as a basis to create the foundation and then figure out what meets our needs inside Iraq and what fits us, and then utilize it rather than invent things from scratch. Connectivity infrastructure is fairly expensive for a good reason, because typically this connectivity infrastructure is built around fiber and optical fibers that are buried underground And to do all the burying of the fibers underground and spread it throughout the country is quite an expensive endeavor. Now, to supplant that, particularly in rural areas, the technology of wireless communication and broadband wireless has been actually instituted, has been licensed more recently by the CMC, and it is now in operation, which will enable uh, rural areas to get access. I can bury it I can bury fiber optic cables, which is very expensive, and bring it to every single home uh, in the rural area. But an alternative would be to enable wireless communication in the rural areas where the communication is spotty or the concentration of traffic is not very dense. So instead of using fiber under the ground, I use broadband wireless communication or low orbit satellite communication, which is a technology that was developed more in the past 10 years that is now being widely used around the world in the young population, is probably the most important investment, which a focus for the country. Today, our focus on basic education, elementary, middle school, and high school education. A key component to achieve digital transformation, we generally in the world, people talk about broadband access to the internet as a key enabler. So sometimes they measure if you increase your broadband access to the internet by 10%, you end up improving the GDP by 1 or 2%. In Iraq, it's not just broadband access to the internet that is that still is lacking and it needs further expansion, but having the device itself to give you the ability to interact with other devices on the internet. That device is your laptop or is your phone, the smartphone. Typically in Iraq, most people have more than one smartphone. And the population, there are more phones in Iraq than there is a population in Iraq. But most of these smartphones are used for entertainment and for social communications. It's not used for productivity. In order to have a device for productivity, you need a device like a laptop, especially for those who are in the workforce, as well as those who are in schools. Today, schooling depends quite a lot on digital means of delivering information to the students and giving the students access to information at any time, at any place. Having access to these devices, laptops. For instance, I was talking to one of the presidents of one of the local universities, and we were chatting about the improvements that are needed in the university environment and so on. And we came to the subject about what percentage of students have laptops in that particular university. And he estimated only around 10 to 15% have laptops. Imagine a student going to school, graduating from college, and not having used a laptop. Or if they used a computer, they use it in a lab and they don't use it on a regular basis. This is 50 years behind the times, 50 years behind the rest of the world. So we have an initiative which actually came out from the workshop in Jeddah that happened a little over 4 or 5 weeks ago, organized by UNDP and the Islamic Development Bank, in which I proposed we provide a laptop for every college student in Iraq through a loan supported by the Islamic Development Bank, and a big discount which we can obtain from the vendors, which will bring down the cost per laptop to somewhere between $300 and $350, and the student can pay it over a period of 24 months in the form of installments. A big obstacle came up, and the obstacle was the loans that will be provided by the funding institution requires a sovereign guarantee or a guarantee of some sort. And the current state of Iraq does not allow coming up with billions of dollars to guarantee such loans. So I propose we associate with the loan insurance. So we bring in a credible insurance company, and there are several, international as well as local, to provide insurance on the loan for the laptop. And if the student, for one reason or another, is unable to pay, the insurance pays for it. And so we figured out what's the default rate in a typical loan, small loan like this, historically and internationally. What's the typical default rate? And we discovered it's below 8%. It's high, but below 8%, which means it's manageable. So an insurance that would tag another 10% on top of the loan, spread over all students, will enable those students who fail to pay to be able to get the laptop, but when they fail to pay, the insurance will pay for what they cannot pay, whether for health reason, whether they may quit from college, or for financial reason. There is always a small percentage of the students who will not even be able to afford the $15 a month or $20 a month to pay for the installments. These students, we're arranging for charities to get involved and for donors, international donors, to provide funding to enable these students to get the loans through grants that are offered to them because of their financial situation, because their families cannot afford to buy a laptop or to pay for the loan. By doing this, we will finally start graduating college graduates who are well-versed with digital technology. Today, unfortunately, we graduate students out of college, and often they are not qualified to go to the workforce and work in any sector because they are not trained in the use of computers. Now, they say, well, what about the colleges? What are they doing? Aren't they giving them classes? Yes, they give them classes. But when you ask them, well, haven't you learned how to use Microsoft Word? They say, no, we just have theoretical presentations. It's a crime. It's a crime to graduate college students into the workforce in 2025, going forward, and that student doesn't know how to use a computer. So by providing every college student with a computer, we will solve this problem once and for all. And then college professors, educational institutions can now use technologies because students have the devices. They can use technologies in order to educate them more effectively than just simply a board and a chalk in the hand. Initiative in cooperation with the Ministry of Higher Education. And our intention is to create, again, this model, a special purpose vehicle, which would become a PPP in partnership with the Ministry of Higher Education, in partnership with the Iraq Development Fund, which will put seed money. And then we will get the loan from an entity such as the Islamic Development Bank, with actually potential help from GIZ, which is the German aid organization, as well as UNDP, to lift this particular project together in order to make it a reality in the next year or two. AI is the culmination of digitalization. So don't tell me AI and you don't have a laptop.
Yeah.
Don't tell me AI and you don't know how to use email.
Yeah.
Okay, you're just fooling yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, and unfortunately, we have this sense of we want to be very advanced, so let's just pretend we're using AI, but we really don't know what we're talking about. And that I don't let happen. Okay, we're going brick by brick because we need the foundation. We can use AI today, but let's not dream and think there's a genie inside a box and this genie is going to do whatever we want, but we don't understand what this genie is all about and what's inside the box. Now, we need to be realistic. We need to be down to earth. We need to deal with what's needed. So our schools don't have laptops. They don't have desks. They don't even have rooms to meet. Okay, let's focus on what's needed. Let's focus on chairs to sit on. Okay, and that is the priority today. One of the initiatives we did in this office, we have a digital transformation club, and one of the activities we've been actually running lately are training sessions for AI prompt engineering. So how do I interact with the AI, with ChatGPT or with Gemini, in order to get the maximum of what I'm seeking to find? It's easy when I go to Google search and I'm searching for a phrase or a keyword, and it comes back with a big list of links, and I'm lost in the links. With AI, I can ask a simple question. AI gives me a simple answer. But if my question is sophisticated and is perceptive and in-depth, the AI will give me a very well-organized answer that meets my expectation and exceeds it. And often, I personally use AI regularly, maybe at least once an hour. And when I get the responses, it's not just satisfying my expectation, but rather exceeding it big time. And now my expectation has gone up because when the AI gives me answers that not only meet my expectation but exceed it, now my expectation is higher. As far as fintech is concerned, we have a few structural barriers within the infrastructure inside Iraq. We talked about the four pillars of the digital public infrastructure, and e-payment was number 2 in my list. And has been around since 2008. But when you go around, you see people paying cash. You see people paying by card. But often, you may go to a merchant, the merchant does not accept a card. And the reason the merchant does not accept a card is because they don't want transparency. They don't want a record of how much money they made. So we can give amnesty. We can tell people or give a free period for 2 years. You don't have to pay any tax. They are not paying any tax anyway. Let them adopt acceptance of digital tools or the card and the electronic payment through an app on the phone, and let them get a taste of how much increased commerce they will have by not insisting to get cash. Often our executives today, and maybe it's almost all don't rely on real data. They just make decisions based on guesses because we do not have the data. And we pretend we have the data, but we do not have the data. But what we have today, I was asked in one of the conferences where I was a speaker to estimate how far are we along the road of digital transformation. I said less than 1%. That's the reality. The good news is it's a green field. The potential is massive for investors. The potential is massive for solution providers because the country is raw, ready to take all this. And after this period of stability that I talked about and as we started, it's now the time. I speak to heads representing major vendors in the region, and they tell me they are looking at Iraq as the ultimate prize. It's not Saudi Arabia. It's not UAE. It's not Bahrain. It's not Qatar. It is Iraq. When Iraq opens up, the market will open up.